Hey, how the hell is it going? It's Rich. Welcome to my morning. Yep, my morning's start anywhere between 4:30 and 5, and it just gives me a few hours in the morning to get ready, get my mind right, go down to the studio, and draw and paint before the family wakes up and the kids get going, and I can easily just get right into my day, making breakfast for everybody and getting them off to school. So this is my studio, and what I'm going to be working on today is what I usually work on. It's anatomy, dynamic anatomy, working on my poses. Um, I really love drawing, and there are some really good apps now like Clip Studio Paint, which I'm using here. And I love drawing with pencil and paper, but for me recording on YouTube, like, this is the easiest way to do it. So I'm going to be walking you through this process, and I have my reference picture up there in the upper right corner, and it is by an artist. I don't know his real name, but on Instagram he goes by Creon, Creon, and he's a French artist, I believe, and he is friggin' awesome. Just absolutely amazing. Very dynamic with his posing and anatomy and all the stuff that I really want to work on, because my figures, they've gotten really good. They've gotten pretty damn good, but they're not dynamic. They're very boring and usually pretty static, and that's kind of what I want to fix. I want to incorporate more energy and become, I want to develop my visual vocabulary. So I've been working a lot with poses and making them more energetic, I guess, and more interesting. And this guy, he's absolutely one of the best when it comes to poses, and especially with female poses in anatomy. Don't judge me. Got my coffee here. Still waking up. I didn't want to get too far into the costume. I just really wanted to get the pose and the anatomy, because he has some very particular style choices. And basically what it comes down to when you're working on dynamic anatomy and posing, especially with him, it's just as much about the shapes as it is about line choices. Line choices. What lines you choose to put on the page, what lines you choose to keep off the page and you don't put, are very important. They all represent something. So it's kind of hard to explain, but I don't know. Like, it's just it's so hard to explain this early in the morning, but the lines you choose to put on the page versus the lines you choose to leave off, they tell something, It's kind of like if you're telling a story, but you keep out, certain details, but put in other details, you're kind of like, you can frame a story pretty well. Like if you watch any news, they're all framing it a certain way. By leaving out some details, putting in other details, or using certain words, you can tell what kind of way they lean. Same thing with art. Not that it's political, but like, depending on the lines that you put in and how you put them in, and what lines you choose not to put in, tells a totally different story. And now I'm going to go on to the second pose, also by Creon. He is fantastic, and I'm drawing vampirella. And this one isn't so dynamic, but the perspective makes it very dynamic and interesting. It's a low angle, and you're kind of looking up at her. And that was very interesting. And you're going to see me struggle on this arm, which is very weird because I like drawing arms. And I think they're one of the few things I'm very good at. But the angle and how bony the arm is made it very difficult. So the outer side of this arm, the bump on the outer part is muscle. But on the inner part is bone. That's her elbow bone sticking out. So it's very different the way you convey them. It's going to be sharper and straighter because it's not depicting a muscle on the inside, and the outer part's going to be, more curvy because it's a muscle and it can give and flex. But eventually I got it. This video is sped up like 8 times. I was really happy with how these turned out. Sometimes when I do studies, I just import the image and kind of trace to get used to it, which I have done if you follow me on Instagram. I've done other Cre.o.n studies, and for the most part, I kind of just drop them in there and start tracing them to help me figure it out, which is a great way to learn and study. And Clip Studio, Photoshop, all these digital programs are great for that. But I remember back in the day, we had to use like tracing paper or a projector to try to trace and figure it out. So much more difficult back in the day. Not that tracing paper was difficult, but and this rib cage is a perfect example of, and I was messing around with the blender there. It's a perfect example of line choices and what he chooses to put in and leave out. And perspective can determine which lines you're putting in too, because we're getting a low angle view of the boobs. You're getting the rib cage more under the boob, which you can see is pushing it up, and the lines there, the line choices there, and the lines that he's showing say a lot about the perspective. So, also what I learned about his art is that and you can tell this even more when you watch his videos on Instagram. He tends to do shorter, lighter strokes. It's almost sketchy, very sketchy at first, and then he goes in and makes all these longer, darker lines. And that was very interesting to see. Because when I'm working traditionally, I tend to just flow with the pencil. I rarely pick it up, and it's kind of a lot of scribbling and a lot of like sculpting with the pencil. So everybody has a different process, and that's really fun to see other people's processes and how they figure stuff out. And I really enjoy this guy's drawings a lot, so much that I want to kind of absorb some of his energy and his style. So that's why I'm studying his work. It's just absolutely amazing. And I think I learned a lot from this piece. So thank you guys. Remember, subscribe, like the video. Thank you very much.